Desiree Span, welcome to Paradise Perspectives.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that you're here because there are so many questions. You and I have not seen each other since both of us were still living in Curacao. And
Exactly.
that has been quite a while ago. I think half of our lives, pretty
Yeah.
much, right? I think we were still teenagers by the time we
Yeah.
started the last.
Um, if I'm not mistaken, I think I was around 19 when I left Curacao. So yeah, yeah, it's been half of our or even more of our lives that we haven't seen each other. But we've kept contact, on and off through
And
social
there,
media. Yeah,
thank God for social media. If it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't be known anything pretty much of what is going on in your life.
exactly.
And one of the bigger things that that you are doing, which is now you are an author
Yes,
and
I
you
am.
have quite some novels to your name. And I'm so impressed, so proud. So we're gonna
Thank
talk
you.
about everything about your writing, etc. But I think it would be nice for the listener to kind of like know you better. Like
Yeah.
I know the Daisy I know is this multicultural person. And I remember I was always like very much in awe of
Hmm.
your kindness, your
Oh,
sweetness,
thank you.
like always like the kindest person. And now I just finished When I Met Elena.
Okay.
Which is one of your novels. And I
Hmm.
have to say, there's some of that sweetness that I find back
Aw.
in the book as well, which is
Well,
so cool.
it's funny you mentioned that because when people that know me, personally know me well, and they've read my books, and then I'm family and friends, they always tend to recognize some parts of me in certain characters or parts of other people that they know in certain characters, which is true because I write from my own experiences and the people that I know and the stories they've told me, which is something that I kind of like. That's one of my sources, the way I am and the way I think about sort of things. And sometimes I try to like flip it, like, okay, so what if I feel or think this about a certain theme or situation? What would somebody else that thinks completely the opposite, how would they react to a situation like that? And then I try to put that in a character as well. So I find it
Mhm.
interesting to explore all sides, but it comes from you know things that and that you've heard and stories people have told you. Yeah.
Right, of course. So now having going back a little bit to your youth, because that's another part of you that I thought was very interesting, is how you were born in the Netherlands,
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
And then at some point you landed in Curacao.
Yeah.
And then I remember your dad was also in Caracas at one point, because I remember
Yeah.
visiting together.
Yeah.
And I remember sleeping over at your dad's house and meeting some of your friends in
Yeah.
Venezuela. So that, and then now you're married to someone from Mexico, so you have a
Yes.
little bit of Mexico also in there. Girl, you have been all over the place.
Yes. Well, to clarify, so I was born here in the Netherlands, and my father is Dutch, and my mother is from Curacao, the islands. And when I was around 5, 6 year old, my dad was sent abroad for work. So we lived as expats in different countries in South America. We lived in Ecuador, we lived in Trinidad and Tobago, and we lived in Venezuela as well, Caracas. And then my parents got separated, and because my mom is from Curacao, well, she ended taking us back to Curacao, which was, before that period, I'd been there several times on vacation, but never lived there for a longer time. So once we settled there, I mean, I actually finished high school there. And then later on, for study purposes, I left the islands and I came back to Curacao. And I studied I went to the university here. I started
Oh,
out
you
studying
mean the
law.
Netherlands, where you are
Yeah,
now?
yeah, exactly. I'm in the Netherlands. So I came to the Netherlands to study law originally, which was the biggest mistake because I found out after one semester that it's not. I mean, I don't know. It's not something that fits me or matches with my personality or with my passion. So I switched to Well, it's like a cultural study, and part of it, or my major, was film and theater sciences. And then in that period of time, while I was still living officially in the Netherlands, I went to the States. So I went, I think, for a year or half a year, and I ended up in Memphis, Tennessee, which is where I met my husband. And my husband is Mexican, but he was there studying abroad as well. So, well, it was it started out as a beautiful friendship, but it turned into something more, and I had to come back to the Netherlands to finish my, to graduate. And he went back to Mexico to graduate. And when I was done here, I actually then moved to Mexico to be with my future husband. He was my
Wow.
boyfriend back then. And so I lived in Mexico for a while, a couple of years, and then well, I was missing my family, and he wanted to study abroad again. So we decided, well, why not come back to the Netherlands? So we came to the Netherlands. Well, we ended up here, and we've been here ever since. And gradually, my mom, who was living in Curacao, and my sisters were living there. They all kind of like came to this side of the world. And my mom is now actually living in Germany, and one of my sisters is also living in the Netherlands. And then I've got a sister living in New Zealand because she married a New Zealander. And my dad, I know it's not as complicated as it sounds. I can draw you like a kind of like a map. And my dad ended up, after Venezuela, he ended up living in the States for a while as well. And then he ended up, and he's still living in Aruba right now, where, I mean, he got married as well. And I have half siblings that are from Aruba, and
Yeah.
we have contact as well. So, I'm kind of like all over the place. And yeah.
But I kind of love that for you at the same time, and I think that is what this novel, which is the first one for me
Hmm.
when I met Elena, is the first one that I read from you. It's like, and now I'm addicted. By the way, I already bought the Seal series, which we're going to talk about as well. But I have to say, I loved recognizing little things in it. Now, this story is set in LA.
Hmm.
And I thought, as I'm reading it, first of all, I have to commend you on your way of writing, which I loved. It is simple, but yet to the
Oh,
point.
thank you.
It's also emotionally driven. You can feel the emotions of the
Hmm.
characters, but it's also very, very steamy. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how am I gonna look you in the eye when I have you on
Yeah. Well,
steamy?
my family has the same problem after they've read their books. Like, oh, this is a side of you I didn't know existed.
Did your mom and your dad read your book?
No, but my sisters have, and my eldest son read one of my books, and he was like halfway, and then he's like, "Oh my God, no, mom!" So he put it down, and I was like, "Well, I warned you."
Wow. No, they're quite steamy, but so good. But I loved also that you probably draw a little, like you said, you draw from your own life, right?
Hmm.
So I thought it was interesting as I'm reading this because you have quite a knowledge about LA to be writing about this particular one. Now, the Mexico part of the story I understand,
Hmm.
but not quite the part of LA. It's like I was already like, were you living in LA? Were you not in LA? Where does LA come from in this story? And this is my personal curiosity.
Yeah, well, that part is completely research. So, as a writer, you have to do your research, and thank God for Google Maps and Street View, and you kind of like have an idea because I've been there on vacation, but that's not in any way similar to being able to have it as the setting of your novel, but you kind of like go through, okay, so what do I know about this place from books and other movies that I've seen? And then you make like kind of an idea, okay, so this is what I want as a setting. And then you read, I mean, I just Google it, and I try to find houses. I literally look for houses that are for sale that might look like the house that I have envisioned. And then what street would that be on? And then I kind of like fictionalize it, to keep the privacy. And so that's how I go about it. And in my first novel, which is called Oliver and Erica, my main character, Oliver, he does this whole trip through Europe. And I've been to most of the places where he goes to during his journey. But others have been because I've seen pictures and I've seen documentaries or whatever, and then I end up doing research. Okay, so this is where I want my character to be because it fits for the novel, and then I kind of like go through that research process until I get it hopefully right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that is so interesting. Now, so far you have one, two, three, four, five, six novels to your name.
Yes,
Six.
correct. And those are two novellas, so the short novels, short story. Well, they're not short stories, but short novels, and four full-length novels. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just in awe. And I have to ask you about your writing process, but first, what is it that actually drew you to writing? What was it that started all of this for you?
Yeah. Well, as a child, I've always been very creative, drawing, and also I remember making my first like comic strips. There used to be a Dutch comic strip that I loved called Tina, and it was oriented
I
to
love
yeah,
Tina.
and it was really, for teenage girls. And I used
Mhm.
to make my own Tinas. I would draw them and then make the storyboard and kind of like have the dialogue and finish off the comic strip with like a funny pun or whatever. And while I was studying at my master's, I followed a course called narratology, and it teaches you everything about storytelling.
Mhm.
And then when I went to the States and I was there for the filming part, I wrote my first script, and that was like the first time I really got into writing, which is, of course, it's not the same as writing a novel, but that was my first experience as to writing and thinking up a story and visualizing it in my mind. And I remember I read a book that I'm not going to mention which one it is, but it was a really hyped book. It was overhyped, and I was like, this story. If I would have written this story, I would have written it differently. It had so much potential, but in my mind, it could have been better. And then I was like, okay, so maybe I should try that. And then I started. I made a draft for Oliver and Erica, which I've got here. This is my first novel, and
Oh,
I made
love
a
the
draft.
cover, that one, by the way.
Yeah. So I wrote it, and my my sister-in-law, I said she's an avid reader. So I mentioned it, I mentioned to her, yeah, I wrote this book, but I don't know if it's any good or whatever. And so she said, well, send it over. So I send it over via email. She lives in Mexico. And then
Mhm.
she wrote it in like a couple of days, and she wrote back to me, and she's like, you have to do something with this. You can't just let it die. It has to be, you have to do something with it. So I started querying, and I realized then that the writing itself is very difficult, but getting it published is even more difficult. Getting it published as a traditional, with a traditional publisher. So I started out trying to get a literary agent, and this was a very long process with no success. And I'm a very impatient person. So I was like, okay, so what other options do I have? And so I was in that at that point, I already started thinking about self-publishing, but I still wanted to give this a shot. And I was very
Mhm.
lucky to find an agent in the Netherlands. They're called Amsterdam Publishers. And she loved the story, and she decided to publish it. But her niche or wasn't romance. She does autobiographies, nonfiction, but she wanted to expand her portfolio, and she really loved the story. She said, if you give me a shot, I'm giving you a shot, and it will be like a win-win situation. And so she picked up my novel and she published it. And I did have success. I won a prize with the story, which I'm really proud of. But it didn't get, it didn't get the buzz that we were hoping for. And in the end, she was really honest with me, and she said, I kind of underestimated the romance market because it's a very saturated market, and you know there are like a million other writers, and you have to have the know-how to get it, the marketing the right way, find the book community that fits the novel. So anyhow, it's a difficult process. So in the end, we decided to part ways, and she gave me back my rights. So at that point, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it myself. So I opened my own publishing company, and I decided to publish it myself. And that's how it all began. And I'm an indie author. And since then, I republished Oliver and Erica. I gave it a new cover, and that was the beginning.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I just love how you just wrap it up with, yeah, that was the beginning. I was like, I just opened my own publishing. So you now are your own publisher.
Yeah.
You have now a publishing company called DXG.
Yes.
Any significance behind the
Yeah.
letters?
Yes. The D is for my firstborn, Diego. The X is for my second, my daughter, Jimena. And the G is because, well, our last name, my husband's last name is Garza, and we're the Garza, so it's DXG.
I love
And
it. DXG
that's where
publishing.
it came from. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in this world nowadays that we live in, a lot of wannabe authors will go into self-publishing books,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
what was it for you that you didn't want to do self-publishing, and then instead you opened your own publishing company?
Well, um, you know, as with my own publishing company, I'm considered as a self-publisher, and I don't take on any other clients. I don't think I would have the time right now, and I'm really focused on getting my own career as an author because I don't feel like I'm there yet. I mean, I have a little success, but it's not like that I feel comfortable right now that I'm in a position to take on other clients to publish their books. So I consider myself as a self-published author with her own publishing agency. Um, and the reason, I mean, there's an eternal discussion between traditional publishing and self-publishing. Both have their pros and their cons. So every author, I think you have to decide for yourself what it is you want. I decided to go, with self-publishing, and I'm very happy that I did it for, well, the obvious reasons that I mentioned before, that it's quite difficult to get there. But not only that, once you're there, don't forget that you lose all the rights of your own book. You're actually handing over your baby to somebody else, and that is it. It's like, okay, they give you a bunch of money, and then you write your book. And even the creative process is not always, I'm not saying it's like this for everyone, but it can be that in the moment your book is being published and you have a contract with a traditional publisher, they're like, okay, so right now it's very trendy to have, let's say, an ending that is such and such and such. Could you change your ending so that it fits the market better?
Mhm.
And that would mean, because you have a contract with these people, you kind of have to adapt your creative decisions, or at least consult with them, or adapt parts of your story or your cover. You can't decide your own cover anymore because they are the ones that in the end are going to be doing all the
Even the
marketing.
cover is not yours anymore. Then you don't get to
Yeah.
say anything about the cover.
No, in many cases, I mean, I have these are things that you hear, and it seems, of course, if you have very good literary agents and you get, I don't know, a contract with some kind of clause where you say, okay, but I want to be able to decide what my cover looks like, then you're lucky. But most of the
Mhm.
times it's just the story, the content, and that's what you hand over. That's what you're actually giving away, and they decide what they're going to do with it. So you should be willing to part with what was your baby, so to speak,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they kind of like mold it into whatever fits the market at that moment. So,
So then
it's
I
a
guess,
choice.
yeah, it's but I think you lose, of course, you lose a lot of say in what
Hmm.
happens to the novel, obviously. But I think it's also that parting ways with your baby, like you said,
Hmm.
and then handing it over to somebody else who might not see the
Hmm.
baby as you see it. Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
they're only marketing it for the market, if they're only, yeah, of course, which is what
Hmm.
publishing companies do, I can see that. But at the same time, you won't have any say on what
No,
happens. And there is, the book lives in your head. The book
exactly.
is, you know what happens. You probably even know what happens to the characters after the happily
Exactly.
ever
Yeah.
parts of the
Yeah.
story, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, and as I said, everything has, an up and a downside. And as a self-publishing, the parts that are, the difficult parts that you have, I mean, you make that choice and then it turns out, okay, so I do have my baby and I decide how it looks. I mean, I decide what happens to it, but then getting it out there, it's half of the time. I mean, I think in the end, as an indie author, a self-published author, you're 30% of your time you're writing, and the rest of the time you're trying to get your book out there.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't like to have my face plastered on social media. I'm not very consistent in posting, on Instagram or on Facebook. So, for people to notice my book, that is what I should be doing, but I prefer to be writing. So,
Yeah,
it's very difficult because and on the other hand, if you go to if you decide to go traditional public, of course you
yeah.
do need to have some. They want you to have a certain amount of followers, and you've already created a platform of readers, but still the hard work of marketing it and getting that buzz going, and becoming a USA bestseller, that is their
Mhm.
part of the job. You're
Yeah.
writing the novel and then you're handing it over to them, but as an indie author you have to do everything yourself, so it
Right.
becomes a much more complex. um well, it's not only about the writing anymore. So,
Mm.
and which is the thing that I love to do. I hate doing the marketing stuff, but it's like kind of like necessary because if not, nobody knows the book exists.
I think that is the curse of every creator. Like
It
we
is.
all love the creating part of it. It's the marketing of it and getting it in front of others. And also then when you do have it in front of others, dealing with the criticism of it as well,
Exactly.
which comes with it. But I am still curious that you decided to open your own publishing house,
Hmm.
or yeah, DXG Publishing, instead of going through the route that most
Hmm.
publishers now do,
Hmm.
which is to, just do it on Amazon or
Yeah.
like that, without actually having a publishing company behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I made that choice because, well, first of all, I wanted to have a more professional image, and I wanted to be able to have that choice in a future if I decide to focus on pure the publishing part and, try to get other clients on, I'd have that option. And I mean, everything that I know so far about the writing and the publishing industry, I'm an autodidact. So I'm self-taught, and it's by trial and error. And if I can help other authors, other indie authors, by facilitating them or giving them part of the knowledge that I have or helping them publish that book, with my publishing company, I can at least offer them that. But as I said before, I'm not in that phase yet. I'm still learning and focusing, and I'm not doing it completely by myself because I do believe, even as an indie author, it's still very important to have a good editor. I mean, you write the novel, but you're kind of like blind at a certain point
Yeah.
to your own mistakes, so you absolutely need somebody else to take a good look at it and
Yeah.
get out those typos and those mistakes. So that is a very important part that you should always consider. And also the formatting and the cover. I mean, of course, you can do it yourself. And if you publish directly to Amazon, um, they give you an ISBN number, or they give you a number, a publishing number. Um, but I wanted it to be independent from Amazon. So
Gotcha.
um, I buy my own ISBN numbers, and I can publish on any book platform or any distributing company, book retailer that I want. So I started out with my first novel on publishing just on Amazon.
Mhm.
And I mean, again, everything has its advantages and disadvantages. But then I tried that for a while, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go wide, as they say. So I ended up publishing on all other platforms as well, on Kobo and Barnes and Noble. And I don't regret that decision, because I do feel, when I look right now at my sales, um, because I'm so diverse, multicultural, I also have many Dutch customers. So they
Mhm.
tend to not go directly to Amazon to buy
Yeah.
their books. I see there's a tendency for them to use, for example, bol.com, which is like the Amazon of the Netherlands, or
Mhm.
Kobo instead of KDP. So, I try to be available for everyone independently of where they are in the world. And Amazon is the biggest player, which is just a fact at this moment, but I don't want to be restricted completely to Amazon. So that's why I made that choice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to take you back to when you first wrote Oliver and Erica, when you
Mm-hmm.
started. What what kind of mindset did you have to work through, or what kind of mindset challenges I should say you had to work through, going from I want to be a writer to I am a writer? How does
Mm-hmm.
that process go? Take us through that, because I'm so curious. Like, and this is again very personal to me, because I've been dreaming of writing my own novel for a while. So for me now, seeing you went from I want to do this,
Mm-hmm.
probably became as a whisper, like you said, since childhood, since when you were in your early teens, writing that comic,
Mm-hmm.
story, for teenagers, like we all probably were, so many emotions at that time in your life, right? Um, what went through your mind when you were like, okay, I'm going to do this? And what were the obstacles that you had to face?
Okay, so when I started writing Oliver and Erica, I wasn't in the mindset that I'm a writer yet at
Mhm.
that point. It was more of I have a story to tell and I want to put it on paper. That was more the thing. And I had absolutely no like real intention of getting it published, or it was just that I love writing stories. I love reading stories, and I have this thing in my mind and I just want to get it on paper. So it was more like a fun hobby experiment, you could say.
Mhm.
But I was really dedicated, because, I am someone that once I get something in my head, I just have to like go through with it. So
Yeah.
this is a very, very good and a very, very bad quality, because, you know, it's like, there's a saying, well, it's like you I really, it's part of what gives me perseverance, but it's also something that makes me someone that's maybe sometimes pushy and impatient, because I've got something that I want to do, and I want to do it, whatever. And
Yeah.
so in this case, it really was beneficial to me, because I remember that the writing thing I was completely obsessed with at the time. I would take my laptop everywhere, and my kids were younger at that age, and my youngest, she would have swimming classes for to get her swimming diploma. And I would sit there, and all the mothers would be chatting with each other, and I would be in the canteen of the swimming pool by myself, and I would be writing, because that was the moment where I had time. And
Exactly.
yeah, and time was actually the biggest obstacle, because I mean, you still you have your job and your house and your husband and your kids and whatever, and it's, as I said, it's a hobby, so you've got to manage when you're going to do this. So I end up writing everywhere, and people were calling me antisocial because why drink your coffee's getting cold, drink your coffee instead of writing and chat with us, like that. So but then when the novel was done and I got this nice feedback from my sister-in-law, and she kind of like motivated me to get it done. And then when I got Amsterdam publishers to take it on, that was for me the point where I'm like, you know what, I am an author. And yeah, so I think so it's I think it's sad that somebody else has to tell you that you're an author, because I do believe from the moment that you start writing and you take it seriously and it's something that you wish to do, I think you should be able to consider yourself a writer. You're a writer because you write. That's it.
Whether it was published or not,
Whether
you
it's
are an
published,
author. You wrote it.
exactly.
Yes, you wrote that book.
Exactly. But I wasn't, at the beginning, this is something, this idea or mindset that I have now didn't exist at the moment. And, it's sad looking back on it that I needed validation from someone else to be able to say, I identify as a writer. Which is silly, of course. I mean, this is not something that someone else has to tell you. You should be able to consider yourself whatever. If you paint and you love painting, even though you've never sold anything, I mean, you're a painter
You're
or
a
you're an
painter.
artist.
Right.
So yeah, and well, coming back to your questions, the obstacles, which is still an obstacle to this day, is that finding a balance between you know, being an author, but also a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And you're being a mom and a wife and a woman and everything, so finding that balance, I think, is still challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And I think well, I mean, you don't have to look far to know that the only way to get it done is to be consistent. I mean,
Yeah.
and that is with everything. If you have a dream, just go for it. Don't give up and be consistent. And I have days where, uh, I get swallowed up by my job as a teacher and I just don't find the time. And then I'm like, I put everything on hold and I'm like, today I'm not available. Today I'm writing. So you have to be able to make that decision, give yourself the time, be consistent, and also let the people around you know that they should respect that decision, which is
Mm-hmm.
not easy all the time, but I do think it's an important process and it's your right to do that
Mm-hmm.
with whatever project or whatever ambition or dream you want to make true.
Exactly. But I think that's really well said. What would you tell an inspiring or aspiring author? What would you tell that person, if, especially since this is a podcast that I hope will reach as many Caribbean women as possible?
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell a Caribbean woman who has these aspirations
Mm-hmm.
of writing her own book one day? Where should she start?
Well, the first thing is know what I mean. One thing that I find very important is you have to read a lot. You have to be a reader because you have to know if this is something you want to do seriously, you have competition and you have to know who your competition is. You have to know what is trending at the moment. You have to know what else. I mean, what is it the audiences want? And once you know that, you make the choice of, okay, I'm going to write something that I want to write because I don't care what the audience want, or no, I'm going to write this for a specific audience. But you have to know what the audience wants before you can make that choice.
Yeah.
So once you've done your research of, okay, so what is it, the audience, what is it? And then you go to this is the process that I go through. So what is it that I want to tell people? What kind of book would I want to read? And from there, once you've done that research and you've made those decisions, then it's just the simple thing, as I said, find the time, sit down,
Mhm.
be consistent, and write your story. And I have never really gone with the trends. And I think that for my genre, which is contemporary romance, it's easier because, romance stories that are relevant today were relevant 300 years ago, whatever. So, which is different to if you like writing science fiction, or if you like writing, I don't know, thrillers or whatever. I'm not sure because, I've never really done a research in those genres. Um, but there are trends in my specific genre in which I write. You've got the mafia tropes, and you've got the biker tropes, the MC, the motor club tropes. Right now, what's really hot is the hockey tropes. With the heated rivalry book that became
Yeah,
into a series, and
yeah.
and then everywhere you look around, you can see that these romance books are coming out. So, but if
We
I,
also have also the fantasy romance, which is really
exactly.
hot at
We're
the
really
moment too.
hot. Exactly. The fantasy romance. The you had before that it was more the dystopian. Like the world is gone. So there are these trends that come and go. And as a contemporary romance writer, I don't go with any trend. I just write romance novels, stories that people can relate to, normal human beings, you, me can relate to. It can happen to everyone. Um, of course, you want to put a glaze of sprinkle of something special on it, or
Of course,
you deep dive
special
into,
sauce.
yeah, like for example, in my Seal series, the world that I build is more fame and actors and singers and stuff, which I mean, I don't know any actor or famous actor or singer, but still the stories of the people, even if they would have not been famous people, they're very relatable, and it could have been you or me, which is
Mhm.
something that I like to read, and that's why I choose to write it, which doesn't mean that I don't like to, that I'm not aware of the tropes and I don't read the tropes as well. Because as I said before, you do have to be kind of like
Yeah,
aware of what's trending, who's your competition, what are the people, what is it they want to read nowadays. So, so I think
yeah.
as to answer your question about Caribbean women specifically, I think I'm a multicultural writer. I do believe that there is very little representation right now of multicultural characters. And this is not something that I've done like very, you know, aware. It's more something that kind of like developed naturally because
Mhm.
I've lived in so many countries, and because I'm very multicultural myself. And, a part of my
And like you
family is.
said, you're taking a lot of this from your own life.
Exactly. And that's how I ended up being a multicultural writer. It's not something like,
Yeah.
okay, so this is a niche, so I should be writing this. But I said before, as if you're a Caribbean woman and you want to be a writer, I mean, what would be more beautiful than writing something about the islands, a love story there, and having your characters, have that background. And I
Mhm.
do think there's a market for that.
And
Definitely.
have you, in one of your books, been featuring any of the islands so far?
Yes and no. In Oliver and Erica, my characters go to Curacao for their honeymoon, and so I kind of like give it that twist. And in Oliver and Erica, my main character, Erica, she's Dutch, which of course is not Caribbean, but there's some kind of like, relation with that. But I
Well, especially
haven't,
with the Dutch Caribbean. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
but I haven't explored that theme thoroughly in my books yet. So that is on my to-do list. Next book. Well, I'm yeah, right now I'm writing I'm because I just published a book 2 of the Seal series,
Hmm.
and book 3 of the
Yes.
Seal. Yeah.
Forgiving My No is out.
Yeah. Oh, let me show, because I'm very proud of the covers, which
I'm
by the
so
way,
proud of you.
yeah. Yeah, well,
Well
I
done.
have to give credit to Mayonaka Designs. She's wonderful, and she actually made. I had another cover for interviewing Michael, and then I met this girl, and she's really, really good. And she made the cover of book two, and so then I adapted book one so that both covers would match. So,
Ah.
this is interviewing Michael, and it's book one of the series. And then I just February, the end of 28th, I published Forgiving Milo, which is book two. And then hopefully by the end of next year, I'll be publishing book three if all goes according to plan. So when I'm done with that book, I'm definitely I have ideas of, a Caribbean character that I want to get in one of my stories as a main character as well. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. It would be a shame if there's not any Caribbean
Absolutely.
character books, just because
Absolutely.
tourism has been such an instrumental part of your upbringing, and
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
in those really important parts, which is your teenage years.
Yeah.
So I think it will be wonderful to see that.
Yeah.
But I'm also looking forward to seeing you actually, and then of course, with everything going on, you're a mom, you're a wife, you have young kids still. I mean, like the oldest is 18,
Yeah,
is it
he's
17,
got no
18?
17. He's turning 17 next month.
Right.
Well, in May. Yeah. And then my
Yeah, so you're
youngest
not
is
quite the
14.
empty nester yet. You're not quite the empty
No,
nester
no,
yet.
no.
So exactly,
No.
you still have a lot going on. Your family is spread out, so there's a lot of visiting family as well. Um, so it's very hard to find the time. I guess it's like you said, that is your biggest obstacle. And you're a school teacher. You
Yeah.
are an English teacher, so that's that as well. Do you think, and you did mention maybe sometime in the future, but is that something you aspire to do eventually, to have other authors under DXG Publishing?
I haven't thought about it as something for the near future, but I do think that once I don't know. I don't like to make like promises or anything, but I do because I'm because I'm really focused, on my own on publishing my own books
Mhm.
at this moment. But I do think that once I feel like I've I've kind of like have more time and room to help other authors appropriately and as they deserve
Yeah.
and to dedicate the time that is needed, I will definitely do that. Yes. But
I wouldn't be surprised if you would go from, teaching high schoolers
mhm.
to actually mentoring wannabe writers and
Yeah.
giving them workshops that they need and
You
getting
know,
them started. I can totally see that.
yes. And many one of the questions I get asked most is would you give up teaching to become a full-time author? And depending on what time of the day you ask me, my answer might vary. But,
Hmm.
in the end, I think my answer is no, because I really do. I mean, teaching gives me such a feeling, it's such a gratification. I mean, you you're involved in the lives of these teenagers that, at a certain time you feel like you could like, um, um, sometimes you want to scold them, sometimes
Yeah.
you laugh with them, sometimes you praise them, sometimes I mean, it's ups and downs with them during a day, but at the end of the day, I do feel like I'm contributing to someone's
Mhm.
life, even if it's just as small as a grain of salt, and they don't even realize it, of course, at this moment, but it's just in simple things, that during their break, instead of them going to have lunch, they pass by my room, my classroom, and they just stop to say hi, or that they're very much involved and interested and invested in my career as an author, and one of them, just to support me, bought my books. And
Right.
it's you get so much back, and they keep me young, and they keep me, before them I was like, TikTok, yeah, I know what it is, but how does it work? And they're like, Miss Pan, come here with your laptop. And then they teach me how to do that. And it enriches my life. And sometimes, as
Mhm.
my sister is, she always laughs because at the end of a school year, I'm ready to start looking for another job because it's so
It's
extremely
exhausting.
exhausting. But then as soon as I've had my summer vacation and my batteries are recharged, I'm like,
Yeah.
let's do this. And I'm so excited to meet the new generation of kids and to see
Yeah.
the old ones back. And in 6 weeks of vacation, because we have 6 weeks here in the Netherlands of summer vacation, they, some of them grow up so much and they change. And it's really, I would miss it so much. So the
Yeah.
answer in short is no, I don't think I would leave my teaching job to become a full-time author, but I do hope that someday I'll be at the point, financial wise, that I could teach less hours so that I could dedicate more hours to writing. But as I said, the writing business, you don't have to go in it for the money because you'll be very disappointed. So you do keep a day job on the side just in case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a very, very good tip, actually.
Yeah.
So you just said it, how much joy you get out of teaching. Just out of
Mm.
curiosity, again, you've been doing this for 17 years, but who was that teacher for you?
Ooh, I've had several. I remember I went to Mil Maria Immaculata Lyceum
Mhm.
on Curacao, and there was an English teacher there that I loved because she was so straight to the point, no nonsense, direct. I thought she was the coolest person I've ever met. Miss Vitorina, she was called. And I remember
Mm.
once, I never forget, and I always tell my students this anecdote. We she we asked her if we could move the last period so that we could be, end the day a little earlier. And then she made all this planning, and we ended not showing up. So she got back at us because the next day we were supposed to start the first period. So you get up at the crack of dawn and you go there.
Mhm.
And we were all standing there and we were waiting for her, and she didn't show up. She's like, you guys kept me waiting. I'm keeping you waiting. And I thought that was so cool. I mean, she didn't care what the administration had to say. She was like, I have to teach these kids a lesson of respect. So now we all woke up early for nothing and we were waiting, and she was like, whatever. And she was at school. She was just drinking her coffee in the lounge room, and she just didn't show up. She
Love
didn't
that.
teach her class. Yeah.
Love
So
that. So
yeah,
she got you guys good.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So we are, I love it when the conversation just goes so smoothly, and you and I have, well, we have much more catching up to do,
yes,
obviously, but I think it's just so wonderful having this conversation going and finding out more about the characters. I have to say, I loved the part from when I met Elena, how you're actually telling it from the guy's perspective and not the girl's perspective. And I
yeah,
mean, my Matthew in my head looks a little bit different, but although the one on the cover is quite sexy too. Um,
yeah. And it's funny you should mention that because when my graphic designer because I tend to not like to put the faces of my characters on the covers because, as you just mentioned, everybody has to visualize,
yeah,
their hottest guy in their own head or somebody
yeah.
that they love or whatever. So, but then she found this picture and she was like, oh my God, this is the person that I was visualizing when I read your novel. And then she sent me the picture and I was like, in my head. So we cannot not put him on the cover. So we ended up putting him on the cover. And then there are times when I'm like, should we have done that?
Yeah.
Let it, as you said, have every reader have their own. But I was like, no, for this one, I'm still thinking. Sometimes I doubt, if I should change it, take him off the
I
cover. But then I'm like,
mean, things. I mean, like he's so handsome.
yeah,
He's
he
so
is.
like, but also my version comes quite close to him too. I have to
Yeah.
say. So Yeah, absolutely. And it's just such a good book. I loved how you're writing it from his perspective and how he fell for her first and what all the struggles emotionally were that he dealt with. Because, a lot
Yeah,
of men, emotional toddlers that they can be. And he
exactly.
had to work through all of those emotions to get there.
Yeah.
Um, does your husband has anything to do with any of the male characters in your books, by the
Actually,
way?
yes. Yes, I tend to pick some of the best and worst traits from my husband and kind of like mix and match them to get an interesting character. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's not all true, but I do, you know, as I said before, I try to make. I think it's very important that my characters are multidimensional and that they are real people and that they feel real and that they have flaws and that sometimes they are annoying and that other times they are lovable and that they're real people. That's what
Yeah.
I that's what that's I hope that comes across because that's what I'm going for. So yeah, there and some of my characters there's more of my husband and others there's less, but I do kind of like, and not only from my husband but also at colleagues or friends that I have, male
Yeah.
colleagues, male friends, or husbands of my best friends where we sit around and we start bitching about our husbands, and then I'm like, ooh, this is something interesting that I could use for my next book. So it's I do kind of tend to, as I said, go from my own experiences and stories that I hear to try to create real characters, which I think
Of course.
I hope comes
But
across.
that is the important part of your stories because there's such a. I actually, now that I've finished it, I want to know more of what Matthew and Lena are doing after because, of course, all the books end at happily ever after, but we all
Hmm.
know that in real life there is no such thing. So I wonder what kind of other obstacles they will need to face together. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we have come to the part where, because I'm looking at the time and I'm like, I can't believe we're almost at an hour. It goes by so fast. So I have prepared some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
And I don't want you to think too much. Just go for
Ooh.
it.
Okay.
Okay. You
I'll do my
ready?
best. Yeah. Ready.
Okay. Okay. Get ready here. All right. Notebook or laptop?
Laptop.
Okay. Shit, you see, I'm saying fear or how do you say that? I'm saying rapid fire, and I myself, I'm like, oh, what I'm gonna ask next.
No
Okay.
stress. No
Your favorite
stress.
book. Favorite book.
Favorite book. Uh. Oh, that's difficult because it.
Yes.
Oh my God. I think right now it's what's it called? Still Beating.
Ooh, who's the author?
Jennifer. I think she's called Jennifer Hartman. That's,
Okay.
yeah. Still Beating. Look it up. It's
Your
good.
favorite genre. What's your favorite genre?
My favorite genre is contemporary romance, of course. And right now I'm in my dark romance phase. So
Okay. All right. So, your favorite character from one of your novels?
my favorite character from one of my novels right now is Milo from Forgiving Milo. He's such a
Ooh.
sweetheart. I love
Is
it.
he really? I can't wait to meet him. When I
Yeah.
bought the book, I'm just, now just need to. I want to know also podcast or books. Or
Um,
actually, I should say audiobooks or books.
yeah. I think books. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is it the smell? Is it the And do
No,
you read your books on the actual book, or do you prefer like what do you say that
the
like
ebooks.
Kindles? Yeah, the
Yeah,
ebooks.
well, I prefer actual books, but sometimes when I travel, I tend to, you can't pack so much, so then I have my
Mhm.
ebooks with me. And I prefer books over audiobooks because I've listened to several audiobooks, but I don't know why a lot of times I don't like the female voices. I find them kind
Yeah.
of like whiny and I envision it
Hmm.
completely different in my head. So but they're very practical because I can be folding
Yes.
my laundry and listening to my audiobook. So I have, sometimes I kind of like do it hybrid. I combine it. I'm reading the book, and then at a certain point when I have the book, I have the audiobook as well, and then I kind of like in the night I read it, and then I put it on my nightstand, and the next day I'm driving to work and I'm
Yeah,
in
because you
my
can't
car.
wait to know more about what the story is. Like, yeah, I know. I have that feeling too all the time. But I
Yeah.
have to say, like, would you narrate your own?
My own book.
Hmm.
No, I don't think my voice is sexy enough.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I think your voice is perfect. But okay,
No, I
that's how I
no,
see
and
it.
I think it would be weird hearing my own voice. I don't know. I don't know. I think
It's something that you need to get used to. I think I had it too before when I started, recording and stuff. It's just always like it's a little weird listening to your
yeah.
own voice, but it does get. I think you have a pretty good voice. So if you're ever considering it, it's considering doing any of your novels into audiobooks, which I think are there any already?
No, no, no. I
Not
haven't
yet.
gone
But
through that
if you're
yet.
considering it, I do think that you need to make an appearance at one point or
Okay.
another. Yeah.
I'll
And
think
also
about
I
it.
have to, yes, think about it. And I think it's so incredible that your English, and this is what I don't get a lot. It's like we grow up speaking English, Dutch, Spanish, Papiamento. So
Papiamento.
we're fluent in four languages, some of us
Hmm.
even more. And then so it is, why English for you? I'm curious because I have the same thing. English is my go-to. It has always been my go-to. Whenever
Yeah.
I would read books when I was growing up, it was always I would prefer an English written book instead of Dutch. I can't get through a Dutch book.
No, I don't. It's it's interesting you say that. I have exactly the same thing. I kind of tend to. I have the same with movies as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my head, I think it sounds natural for some reason, even though it's
Yeah.
not my native language. And also because, when I was living abroad as a kid, I went to the international school. So I'm not saying that English is my second language, but everything that had to do with education and has always been in English, and writing has been in English, and the reading part started out in English. And then after, when we went to live in Curacao, it became Dutch because then I enrolled into the
Yeah.
Dutch system. So I think it kind of like originated from the English language, even
Hmm.
though simultaneously I always spoke Dutch with my father and Papiamento with my mom, and we were living in
Yeah.
South America. So, we would be on the street
Spanish
speaking
was there.
Spanish,
So,
exactly,
mhm.
but the education was in English. So that might be, if I have to really analyze it, that might be
Mhm.
like a factual thing that could be the
Yeah.
origins of this. Um,
Yeah.
but also it just sounds comfortable. I don't know. I feel,
Yeah. For me, it's the same. Now, I have
yeah.
to ask you, it's like my dad used to always say, you master the language in which you dream. Do you dream in Dutch, Papiamento, Spanish, or English?
Wow, these are very difficult questions. I don't I, my logo is literally writer of dreams because I tend to dream a lot, and I have very good dreams. They're very vivid, but then I
Mhm.
wake up, I write them down because I have, my phone or whatever, and I write them
Yeah.
down, but I never really stop to think of what language it was. I think it tends to be a combination between English and Dutch because, I'm living in the Netherlands. So everything that
Exactly.
you
Not
experience
every
during the
day.
day, you
Mhm.
kind of like process it during your
Yeah.
sleep. So if I were to say in what language do I dream, I would have to say Dutch English.
Dutch and English.
English. I dream in English.
It has been such a pleasure having you on the show. I am so
Yes.
happy that you
I
could make the time today.
invited me. It's so nice talking to you again.
I hate that we have to keep this at about an hour.
I
I could
know.
seriously do another hour of this. There's so many questions, but that's why you have repeat guests. So
Yeah,
we're just gonna put it out in the universe. You will be back on
I
Paradise
will.
Perspective. Thank
I
you
will.
so much, Desiree. Now, I have to ask if anybody wants to get any of your books. Of course, you have When I Met Elena, you have Oliver and Erica, Interviewing Michael, plus the second one in the series now that just came out, Forgiving Milo. You
Hmm.
have A Destined to Love, and of course, the one also that is a short novella, which is For My
For my
Sister.
sister. Yeah.
Mhm. Is there anything else? You already said there's a third one in the series
Yeah,
coming out.
it's called Saving a Mason, and well, it's still a work in progress at the moment, so that one is due to be published by the end of 2027.
Mhm.
And I'm working on a short story which will be published in an anthology, which will be sold at the events that at the book events that I will be attending here in the Netherlands. So if any of you listening are in the Netherlands, please come and see me. I'll be at the MH book event on the 9th of May, and I'll be at the Spicy and Steamy book event in September, and again at the MH book events on the 29th of November. So I'll be so happy to see you guys there. Come.
And where are all of these in the Netherlands happening? Where are all these shows happening?
Um, the MH book events on the 9th of May is in Tiel. And the Spicy and Steamy book events is in the Jaarbeurs in Utrecht.
Hmm.
And the other edition of the MH book events is in November on the 29th. If I'm not mistaken, that one is in Tiel as well, or in Deventer. But you can check out my website, and I'm going to be posting my upcoming events. And for
Fantastic.
anyone interested in purchasing my books, if you don't, if you don't know exactly where to find them, you can always find them via my website, and you can sign up for my newsletter there as well. So you're welcome to join my journey as an indie author by signing up.
Now, I have bought your books as ebooks, but if I want a hard copy, because there's something about a hard copy that feels so good, where can we purchase those?
Yeah, you can buy those at the same well, you I think it's easier if you go to Amazon because you can just order the paperback there.
Hmm.
Versus if you go through Kobo or whatever, they would have to send you, and you would end up at Amazon anyway because it's a print on demand system. So I don't have them
Okay.
on stock. But if you have any questions about those, you can just email me at info@desireespan.com, and I can always help you out. But check out Amazon. You'll find both there.
And of course, all of that information is going to be below in the description of this video if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you are listening to the podcast on whatever one of your podcast listening platforms you prefer, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or any of the other ones, you can find it, of course, in the show notes. And with that, I have to ask you just my last question. What did it feel like for you holding your actual book in your hands for the first time?
In one word, I was ecstatic. And yeah, really, it's the most beautiful feeling ever.
Yeah,
After
I
my
can
babies,
imagine.
after of my babies, it's my first paper baby.
Fantastic. Desiree, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on Paradise
Thank you
Perspectives
so
today.
much as well for inviting me. It was so much fun talking with you again. Yeah, and we'll keep in touch, Rizal.
Yes, we have to. We have to. I think we have to do this more often.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
And I am purchasing my hardcover or my
My
paperback.
paperback.
I'm going
Yeah.
to get one of those because when we meet, I want a signature. I want your
Oh,
autograph
yes,
on
my pleasure.
this,
Yes, yes.
obviously.
Okay.